Hey everybody, welcome to What Up Clegg. This channel we talk about all kinds of things, how to fix, how to make it, how to maintain it, as well as product review. This is one of the many videos out there here on YouTube University. Today we're going to talk about soldering with the soldering iron. We're going to solder some wires. A lot of people have been asking, well, how well does it still solder? As you saw from my last videos, if you look back at my past videos from a year ago all the way, I think my last one was maybe 8 months ago, I don't know for sure. But when I first got this thing, I believe it was probably 5-6 years ago, this right here, the temperature on it was about 600 degrees Fahrenheit, somewhere around there. The last time I did a video, I reached around 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Now I use this thing all the time, so we're going to take a look and see what the temperature on the tip is doing right now, see how well it still solders at the temperature. It is not doing 600 degrees, I tell you that right now. If I'm lucky, I might be getting half that, but we'll go ahead and see what we're doing. So the battery I'm going to use is one of the more popular ones in the small batteries, the M12s. This is the 2 milliamp or 2 amp hour battery. So again, this soldering iron here is the M12 soldering iron. Some people have had difficulties with these things melting on them. I have not had any issues with this thing melting on me. As you can tell, this is the original soldering iron I've been using forever. I do have the bigger packs that I put on here, and I have no issues. As you can tell, it still works fine. I've had this thing sitting on for using it straight for hours. I mean, the battery of course will go dead. I'll pop the battery out, slap another battery in, and I'll continue. I do a lot of my hobby is, one of my hobbies is RC cars. And anybody's in RC cars, you know there's a lot of soldering that goes on with these things. Not only am I in it, as well as I have kids that are also into RC cars. I'm using this on their vehicle as well. So let's see where temperature's sitting at right now. So right now I'm sitting at approximately, I don't know if you guys can see that on there, about 282 is the highest I got. The meter I'm using right now is a Fluke. 292 degrees. Well, we're getting up to the halfway mark. Let's see if we can at least get 300 out of this bad boy. 298. 309. I think that right down here, see it says 309 is the hottest it got. So I think it's good. So what we're going to solder now today is I have some wire here. This right here is multi-strand wire. I don't know if you can see the gauge there. It's 12 gauge. See, and I also have some. This right here is 16 gauge multi-strand. Now, as you can tell, the wire I'm using is very flexible. This is the type of wire you want. Very flexible. You don't have to worry about breaking or bending breaking the copper inside as you bend it. This is also oxygen-free wire. And the other wire I have here that I'll be soldering on just for testing purposes is the 16 gauge. So I have 18 gauge right here. I don't know if I mentioned that. 18 gauge, 12 gauge, and as you see here, it is 16 gauge. This is all high quality wire. Again, even this right here is very flexible. So the solder I'm going to use, I decided to just use some regular basic solder, so you can see how it works. Just regular solder, not any special solder. This is the 6040, just regular solder that you get from like Home Depot or Lowe's. Rosin core, nothing special. Let's see here, we got temperature wise, what are we at? 318 degrees. How well does it melt the solder? The tip I have on here is the tips I've talked about in my other videos that are, I can't remember the brand of them, but they're an off-brand, and they work great on these. They actually work better on these soldering irons than the factory one. Milwaukee soldering tip came with, but this one here is a little, I don't know if you can see it in the video, but it's a little flat tip. Let me clean that tip off here a little bit. There you go. So, I don't know if you see it, but it's just a tiny flat tip. A little, yeah, it melts it pretty darn good. Now, whenever you solder, so what you want to do first is you want to tin it first. And what that means is that you're going to pre-solder it. So it's kind of like pre-gluing it before you do it. So you want to tin the surface first, put a little bit, just a little bit, not a lot, before you solder it. And you want to do this on both surfaces. First thing I'm going to solder first is the we'll do the 12 gauge first. I have the 14 gauge, but we'll go ahead and do the 12 gauge, therefore you can see what it does with the 12 gauge. I don't even know how well it's going to do with the 12 gauge. I normally use the 14 gauge, but why not? So, now again, when you're soldering, you want to kind of tin the surface first. Now, if you put the soldering iron at the bottom of the wire, like this, I'm resting the wire on the iron. You just barely tap it with a little bit of solder. Now get it started. So you want to kind of let the solder go into it. And ideally, you want it to come from the top, but 300 degrees, it is not hot enough to suck that solder down into there. What solder does is solder is attracted to the heat. So if you put the solder on the bottom, or you put the solder on the top, or the heat iron on the top, you put the solder on the bottom, the solder is going to go up into it, so, and then vice versa. So let's go ahead and put this in place. I don't want to touch out my finger, it's a little hot. Now, one thing I do when I solder is if I have to put a wire in here and I can't hold it in place with my hand, I'll use like an X-Acto knife. The reason why I use an X-Acto knife is because the solder won't stick to it. You don't want to push down on it and cut the wires all up. That wouldn't be any good. So there you go. Now let's see how hot the wire is. The wire here, wire there got a toasty 121 degrees. So 300 degrees for a soldering iron on 12 gauge wire is probably not ideal. How well of a solder joint was that? It was a pretty darn good solder joint if you ask me. It looked like it soaked all the way through the wire. A little bit. Nope, it didn't even soak through all the wire. As you can see here, you can see some of the strands right there. It did not get down inside the strands. So if I put it on there longer, of course it will go all the way through, but then you burn up the wire. And if you're trying to do electronics, that wire is going to or that heat is going to transfer into the electronics. So if I'm heating this up, and this right here is 120 degrees, this plate down in here that this connector is connected to is probably going to be closer to 150 degrees. Next thing you know, it's going to burn out the electronics inside because you're overheating. So 320 degrees with 12 gauge wire, I don't recommend it, not at all. Let's see if we actually are getting 300 20 degrees on this thing right now. It might have gone up. Let's take a look. 330 degrees is what it's sitting at right now. So, I don't know if you can see that. 331. So 331 degrees, not good. Now that little joint that I did, let's see how much power we use. I started off with a full pack. I probably should have showed you before we started. But we're down to half. Now this battery pack in this thing, if you see my other videos, that I started, did a review on these battery packs about a year ago, and I think then this battery pack, the 2.0, was probably 4 years old. That means this battery pack here has got to be at least 5 years old. Again, this is a 2 amp hour battery, so not bad. I mean, however long this video is, that's how long this iron's been on for. Okay, now we're going to solder the 16 gauge. We're going to take these, I'm just going to twist them together here. Just get an idea how well they solder together. 16 gauge wire, silver tinned wire. Now when you twist wires together, you obviously can't tin it before you twist them together, because otherwise you just can't twist it together. So let's see here. Let me clean off this tip real quick. Alright. Now again, we'll go in, but we'll want to put a little solder on the tip of that. Put it on the wire. I don't know if you can see that, but it's starting to soak it up pretty good. Oops, I pulled it away and it cooled off that quick. Now see how I'm doing on from the top? It's just sucking that solder right through. So there you have it. Now for twisting them together, I'd say that it works pretty good for twisting 16 gauge wire together. It doesn't necessarily have to soak all the way through when it's a twist, but you know, it doesn't hurt. It's going to pretty much get a pretty good enough effect. Now I'm going to clean off the tip. And we'll go ahead and do the do the 18 gauge wire. Strip back, twist them together. Now let's say, here, I'll do it the way I normally do. Now if I'm twisting wires, let's say I have 2 wires and I have to join them together. What I'll do, zoom out a little bit, what I'll do is take them and I'll spread them apart a little bit, like this, and a Y, both sides. And then when I put them together like this, and then I just twist them, twist it together. Alright, so with that twisted together, I'll just take the soldering iron and I'll just solder them. I'm going to zoom in on that so that you can see how well it sucks the wire in, or sucks the solder in. Straighten that up. There we go. Wire doesn't want to cooperate with me. Okay, so I tin a little bit, right away it just sucked right through. See that? Just sucked right through. And that right there, folks, is a, whoops, not touching anymore. That right there, see how fast that soaked through? That is a very beautiful solder joint. So anyhow, 16 gauge wire together works great. Or I'm sorry, this is 18 gauge wire soldered together, works great. 16 gauge speaker wire worked pretty good. It could work a little bit better, still a little thick. If I kept it on there a little longer, it would soak through and it looked just as good as this. You see how you can see the wires, the outlines of the wires, the definition of the wires in there? That means that the solder soaked all the way through, and that's the perfect type of a joint that you want. And right there. So this right here didn't soak all the way through. It's a twist. It's still a good joint. It's not the best. The best would be, again, it would be sucked all the way through. Let me see if I can get this suck all the way through. See how long it takes. Now, the reason why I put more solder on it, because if you prime it with a little solder, it gets hot faster. It melts the rest of it a lot faster. Yeah, see, now it's starting to suck it all through right there. You see that? So that, see how you see the definition of the wires? That means it sucked the solder. The solder just absorbed into it pretty well. Excellent job. Now the buggy motor, again, it didn't get all the way in. It didn't, the solder didn't absorb all the way in. This is not an ideal solder joint. Will it work? Yeah. Are you going to notice a difference in resistance and stuff? Probably not. You know, it's better than a crimp connector, that's for sure. So let's see what we got on the temperature. Right now on the temperature, we are sitting at 344 degrees. Well, let me get that so you can see there. 344 degrees. So it's looking good there. Hasn't gone down or gone up. Now for temperature or power wise, let's see how much battery life we used for this whole duration. Still at 50%. Show you that again. See that? There's 2 red lights on out of 4. That's kind of weird that it dropped 50%, boom, like that. But it held at the 50% mark. So anyhow, that's what I have on this video here. I hope it was helpful for you. You guys kind of see what it can do, what the soldering iron can do, the old soldering iron. I did clean off the heating element inside before I did this video, so to try to get the most heat out of this thing that I could, and still clocked at 350 degrees. Very good one. There are replacement filaments out there. Maybe I'll do a video on replacement one of these days, or maybe I'll just buy new soldering iron. Maybe it's about time. It's 5-6 years old. But anyhow, again, I hope this was helpful for you. If you like my videos, please subscribe. If you don't like it, subscribe anyway, just so you can make fun of me. Have a good night, guys.